You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
So I thought about to do the cold open for the show today, like just reading the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven as if I was, William Shatner trying to make an album in the 70s. And then I thought about talking about the new feature that will be on our website starting tonight with the playlist based on in-stores this week and blog that you can contribute to and comment on. And then I thought about just making a bunch of jokes about the news. And then I fell asleep. And then I read all the books. It's been a weird day. Normally it goes in the opposite direction. I fall asleep while reading the books and then come up with a cold open. I'm all upside down, which is a good way of saying this might be the nicest I've ever been to a set of books. Let's find out. Triple B, John Spilios, Lyle, how's it going, everybody? Welcome in. This is In Stores This Week. I can't tell if Mark's frozen or if he's just holding really still. He did this to me last night on Nerd News Now, but he was chugging a Monster, and I got concerned for his health.
So I got two questions.
What's up?
I got two questions.
Mm-hmm.
One, you mentioned Stairway to Heaven. Have you ever heard the parody song Shopping at 7-Eleven?
Yes. I haven't thought about it in years, but I know what I'll be listening to now on my way home.
The sad part is, for some reason, I learned that in my 20s when that came out. And I still remember all the words. Haven't thought about it in years, but I could pretty much just sing it right now, which is scary.
It's like that with Weird Al for me. Like somebody's like, do you remember that Weird Al parody of such and such? Yes. Do you want me to sing it to you? No? Okay, good. That's probably smart.
Okay, my second question. Now, I do the social media here. I post for all the shows and stuff. What the hell is Nerd News Now? I never hear about it. I don't get asked to post anything about it. Just this thing that happens.
Nerd News Now is a show that Jen and Brainy and I do with Mark that you can find over on Woodlands Online, which is, Mark, you explain Nerd News Now, because I'm just going to basically quote the thing I read at the end of the episodes.
It's just a talky yappy show for Woodlands Online. That's what it is. It's just a podcast. We
run them on here sometimes. We want to run them more, but we don't always. So it's a thing.
Okay, because I'll be tuning in and suddenly I'll look up. We have a show on? How do we have a show no one told me about?
Sometimes it's on opposite Pop Go the Writers, and I don't want to not have people watch Pop Go the Writers.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So, it's we're working it out, how to get it on our air more and then give you something to promote. But right now it's just something we do where we're supposed to talk about nerd news, but like the amount of time we spend talking about tacos or lightsaber churros is disproportionate to the amount of nerd news we talk. Last night, Mark and I did an hour and a half just on WrestleMania. I don't think we talked about anything else the whole show.
By the way, Ed seems to think that you're Mark Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo starring in the bottom row. That's true. He does have a Mark Ruffalo sensibility.
Yeah.
And when he refers to it as row, I immediately think Mark Ruffalo to block.
I don't know what those are, Lyle. All right. But for where Lyle's from, why he's not just talking about gravy and calling it poutine, I don't understand. All right, let's get into it. We've got a little bit of a new layout until I can figure out how to make the old layout work with this configuration. So we'll get started. First up, Saturday Morning Adventures Dungeons & Dragons #1 from IDW, written by David Boer.
Drawn by George Kambatis.
Yeah.
Same
George
artist who's
does
doing
all the
Gargoyles.
Saturday Morning Adventures books.
Yeah, he also does Gargoyles.
Yep.
Dynamite. And I realized, and George is a talented artist. I don't particularly like his style. And it kind of took me out of this book.
I think it works for this one. Right?
Not for me. I couldn't get into this. I really wanted to. It was one of the first things I read. So I'd go in, mind good, not dulled by too many books. And it just didn't work for me. But then again, I'm not the guy that grew up on this series. I remember it when it was airing, but it didn't get my attention. I didn't watch it. I know the little GM guy or DM guy. I knew about the unicorn, the little barbarian. I'm not even sure why that guy's a cavalier instead of a paladin, or why the nerdy guy is a magician instead of a sorcerer or a wizard. So I'm not even sure why they're not even using the right class names. Yeah, this just didn't click for me.
Mark, did you get a chance to read this one?
Yeah, this was like 4 of the other ones that we read this week, except I like this one. So it's bright, it's colorful. I recognize these characters. It's a good intro to the different types of attributes that people that play Dungeons and Dragons have. There's a unicorn pony thing that's cool. And also Saturday Morning Adventures. I really enjoyed the G.I. Joe series, so I'll give this a shot too. Like it reeks nostalgia, even though I didn't have much interaction with Dungeons and Dragons. I recognize the characters and the action figure line and stuff like that. So I liked this one. I like the art style. The art style does speak to me on this. So
yeah, so Ed kind of references it in his comment, but so did David Boer yesterday on the show with Jen, is that some of the classes are not classes you recognize because they're Little Red Book Dungeons and Dragons classes. They were original classes, and in some cases he says you're going to come against stuff that isn't quite released yet. So Lyle, this book comes out on Wednesday, comes out tomorrow. Because they worked with Wizards of the Coast, there's some stuff that will be referenced in this book that was supposed to be out by now that isn't quite.
Right.
So there's a little bit of that where you're just going to have to kind of accept terminology we might not otherwise recognize, which is the one problem I have, right? I have to slow down. Dungeons and Dragons comes so secondhand to me that when there's a class or a term that isn't a term that I've used, I have to slow down and context clue it away. Which is tough sometimes. But I have young nephews, 7-8-year-old nephews, who want me to start teaching them Dungeons and Dragons. I've had a lot of trepidation because I get frustrated sitting with a table of grown, experienced players. I think I'm going to hand them this series and be like, okay, read this and then we'll talk.
By the way, anybody going to see Dungeons and Dragons this weekend, keep this group in mind. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Rocketman and Rocketgirl #1.
I gotta say, this had that 1950s pulpy comic feel to it, which is what I think they were going for. And I think that worked pretty well for it. I didn't love the book, but it was fun, It's like you were picking up an old comic book, It had that feel to it. And, I thought the art was good. The story was good. I don't know these characters, but they were written in such a way that it almost felt like Reed and Sue in a sense. And, the science behind it and stuff like that. So, but a little bit of Rocketeer, a little bit of Fantastic Four -2, but it was a fun read.
Mark?
I just realized 10 seconds ago that the name of the movie I was thinking of is Rocketeer and not Rocket Man, because the whole time I was like, is this on the movie? Because I don't remember any of this, but that's Rocketeer. And this is Rocket Man and Rocket Girl.
Rocket Man's about Elton John.
Pretty art, not much there. Well, yeah, but Rocketeer is about a jetpack man. This is a jetpack man or a rocket man.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have enjoyed this more if it was about Elton John, to be honest. But it's all right. I mean, pretty art, a story about a couple. Okay, I don't know really where it goes from here.
It's just a one shot. I think they wanted to do. These are public domain characters from the 30s and 40s that they, had fun with. So it's just a one shot.
I have a question. Did helicopters exist in the 50s?
I think so.
In the late 40s, during a time when you could have conceivably been fighting the Nazis, did helicopters exist?
I believe they did. I will check real quick.
Because that took me out of it. I'm like, I don't think helicopters were a thing quite yet. Like, if they were pretty rudimentary.
First helicopter was 1939.
So barely. So here's my thing, right? Like, everything about this looks history, right? It's supposed to feel like it's set in the 50s, but there were like real things happening in the 50s that they could have based this around. That being said, I like the characters. I would like to see Rocketman and Rocketgirl turned into something by Dynamite. Let's do a 6-issue miniseries where Rocketman and Rocketgirl cross over with the powers, what you call them?
Project Superpower.
Project Superpowers.
Yeah, they're part of that.
Right, but like let's do this book, right, where it's those guys all dressed in black and them dressed in yellow and red, and kind of this yin and yang crime fighting thing. Like there's an opportunity there, right? And I'm down for that. This book to me just felt a little bit like a hey, we need to publish something book.
I will tell you, after doing some quick research, that the helicopter they use in the story was available in the 1950s. So much so that, the Bat helicopter from the 1960s TV series?
Sure.
That was actually made in the 50s as well. So helicopter technology was doing pretty well in the 50s.
Right, but the fact that I didn't know that took me out of the book. Like, I had to stop and think about it. And knowing that, I don't think would have helped the book any. But my lack of knowledge hurt the book. So, that being said, though, like it just felt like it's something to put out. Let's do something with these characters because these guys are a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
But you were worried about helicopters when they have jetpacks of this quality? That's what I don't get.
They had jetpacks in the Rocketeer. Mark, I had to drive to work today and not take my jetpack. There's a level of you can put stuff aside. Like,
yeah.
But the things, my problem with books is always the bits that I know are real, but I think are out of time. Right? They're not sequenced right. That gives me pause.
By the way, from a writer's point of view, mm-hmm. when you're doing a book like this that sets in a different period, you question everything you're putting in the book. When I was writing the Lucius Fogg novels, and those are all set in the 50s, anything I put in there, what type of telephone, flashlights. I mean, I would Google the hell out of it to make sure I'm using not only the right kind, but to make sure they even existed at that point.
Right.
And I have no doubt that the writer of this, Jacob Edgar, did the same thing.
Oh, certainly. Like I said, it just was one of those things that I had to stop and go, even if this is wrong, I need to keep moving. And Ed's right.
Ed wins.
Ed wins. I'm just glad it's not Rocketman and Rocket Sonia. Don't worry, Ed. There's a Sonia book for you in a minute. Barbarella, the center cannot hold, number 2. Can I just tell you, this book made me... I spent a lot of time on Spotify because of this book today.
Oh?
Why has no one done a punk rock cover of Wipeout? Because, like, this to me just screams like Haley Williams and Paramore doing Wipeout because of the Sharkmen.
I'm trying to think of what would make it a punk rock version.
You just scream Wipeout a little harder.
But I mean, from an instrument standpoint, from a musical timing standpoint, it's not that far.
No, you don't change anything. You just Wipeout. You have to say a little bit more like angsty. I'll work on it. But no, anyway, this cover just made me go, I want this thing now.
This was the last book I got to. I was literally reading it about 3 minutes before my show started earlier. And so I may have skimmed it a little bit more than read it, but it's really pretty art. There is some kind of genocide thing going on here, and I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not sure about the flying sharks. I do appreciate the fact there are hammerhead sharks, because I think that does change it up a little bit. Great whites get way too much of the negative publicity. You know, switching up using hammerheads is a nice diverse move. You know, because we need diversity in comics. So, but it's still a fun series. I'm going to go back and read it thoroughly. But I like where they're going with it. You get the history of the bunny people. You find out more and more that Vex is the creatures that Vex is part of, the architects, aren't really good group at all. So, yeah. I think if you like the first one, you're definitely going to like this one. Or if you're a fan of the Barbarella series, this just keeps going. Sarah Hoyt's doing a great job with it.
Mark?
So why is there a Sharknado on the cover if there's no Sharknadoes in the book? And why are all the other characters in this like they look like non-playable characters from a Star Fox video game? I don't know what's going on in this book, y'all. I know what Barbarella is, but I have no idea what is going on at all. There's like a rabbit, but it's a man, but it's a rabbit, but it's like tricks aren't for kids. I don't know what is this? What number issue is this? Did I miss
2?
like a whole intergalactic war? Oh.
Previous
was there a
series.
Sharknado in the first one? Okay.
No, I think this was just for fun.
I think somebody said, Lucio Perillo, we need sharks.
That's Derek Chu.
Okay.
Who cares?
Yeah.
But somebody said that, and then all the artists on this book were like, sharks. We're going to make shark books, guys. Like, their inner 7-year-olds came out, and I'm here for it.
So the whole reason you wanted to do the Wipeout song was because of the cover?
Yes. Yes.
That has nothing to do with the story.
Correct. That's how my brain works, Dan. We've gone over this.
I think it's hard for us to use the word works when it comes to talking about your brain.
It works. It doesn't work in any kind of normal way, but it works. Anyway, here's the deal with this book for me. If this is what they do the new movie on, like this series, that the previous miniseries and this miniseries, I think they're gonna have a hit on their hands. I don't think they'll suffer the same the same fate that the original Barbarella has fallen to, where it's just become kind of a cult classic.
Mhm.
I think they'll have a legitimate hit on their hands. I like this kind of Barbarella bopping world to world, and helping the people in any given world, almost like she's a Doctor Who type character, where it's, the universe has brought me here, let me help you.
Mhm.
I think that's fun. I don't normally go for Freak of the Week comics, but it can work with a character like Barbarella or a character like John Carter or somebody who's already not Earthbound necessarily, and it could be really fun.
If she's Doctor Who, that means her sonic screwdriver is love. Or screwing.
I was going to say her sonic screwdriver was something else, but I'm good with that. Is she surfing with sharks? Brainy, we already did that riff. All right. Immortal Red Sonja. Unbreakable Red Sonja. Uncontrollable Red Sonja. Unimaginable Red Sonja. I don't know what the first word is. It's a Red Sonja book.
Undistinguishable?
Unreadable.
What's funny is this was this was a series I was really enjoying from Jim Zub. It had a neat twist on it. The fact that it was Red Sonja basically dealing with a child version of herself. It was diving into her history. And I have no idea what the hell happened here. And I feel sorry for Mark because I have a feeling this is the first issue he's read of it. I've read this whole series and have no idea what happened. So I really wish they would just do a standard Red Sonja series without multiverses, without other versions of Red Sonja, without different dimensions and stuff. Just a classic sword and sorcery Red Sonja, like the Conan series, a gritty Red Sonja series.
I agree, and I thought Jim Zub was the guy to write it because so much of his stuff is so, again, Dungeons and Dragons-esque.
Yeah,
which is what Red Sonja should be.
But I don't even want the Dungeons and Dragons. I want Conan.
Right, but it's got this. It's he has a real good high fantasy base.
Yeah, but I don't want high fantasy. I want low fantasy. I want barbarian. I want sword and murder and Frank Miller 300, that type.
This to me feels like it was something that was going somewhere and then the wheels fell off for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
It started off strong and we're going. This is where we're heading. And I got COVID, or something happened and the wheels fell off and it's just trying to get it done. That's impossible, Ed. Otherwise, they would have to be published by Boundless Comics. Anyway, you've got to get it back on the rails, and this never does.
The next series, The Unclothed Red Sonja.
There's a whole company basically doing that. That's their whole gimmick.
Yeah, but they publish very little.
Intentionally. Mark, would you, I don't even know how to ask this question. What'd you think?
The helicopter really took me out of it. Oh wait, this one. So guys, this one had the second least words of the week, so I liked it. Y'all made me read some wordy stuff. You know what I mean?
And we took out the long book.
I liked the art, and I could kind of see what's going on, but I mean, it's obviously like 5 different timelines or something, and for a second I got confused and thought it was the last time was on here where it was like Vampirella's sister or whatever, because that had the same type of feel where it was like jumping through time or people or I don't know, alternate dimensions or something. But as far as like it felt like 4 different origins of Red Sonja, a character I'm not too familiar with. But I like the dialogue. At least was not just dredgy like some of this stuff this week, where it's just like we get paid by the word. Let's go. So
Yeah.
I like pictures in my picture books more than words. So
Kyle, it's interesting that you brought up Boundless. I've always thought Boundless was interesting because Boundless what is a spinoff of Avatar Press, doing what Avatar Press used to do, and then suddenly William was able to get Warren Ellis and Alan Moore to start coming over and do stories there without any kind of interference from the company. And they got taken seriously. They went, well, we can't do the girly books anymore. And then they went, oh, wait, the girly books is our money. Oh, we'll do an imprint called Boundless.
I have a friend who is a comic book retailer
Mhm.
who, during some of the dregs of like the 2008 recession, and currently is making not a small portion of his income selling Boundless books for insanely high markup on the secondary market, because he's been buying them since they were Avatar Press, and so he's got the old school stuff that people want, and
Yep.
they're worth a lot of money now.
My first freelance work was for Avatar.
Yeah,
I think Williams probably got about 50 stories of mine in a cabinet somewhere, or 50 scripts sitting around that he could just start giving people out to write or to draw.
probably.
Yep.
Speaking of, we have to have a conversation tomorrow about another people you used to work for. All right. Next book. Lady Baltimore, Dreams of Icalos.
So which song did you end up going for on this one?
I forget.
Because I was thinking when we talked for the Tarzan one, I recommended Baltimore, and now that's coming into mind.
This one is Witchy Woman, but it's the Christian Chenoweth version. And Summoning the Great Devourer by Jay Vincent.
All right. I like when they do these one shots set in the Hellboy realm, or the Mike Mignola, and Christopher Golden do these things, because it's like a Lobster Johnson book, or or the Kushel, or whatever his name is in Hell. You don't have to have a lot going into it. It's a self-contained story. It's going to be good because it's Mike Mignola. They're finding these really talented artists. I can't speak today. These really talented artists, and it's a fun little story. Here we get an adventurer and a magician going up against an evil wizard guy and the Nazis, and I don't know what else you need to know other than they're going up against Nazis.
This was a Nazi-heavy week in comic books, man. We had Nazis in Rocketman and Rocketgirl. We got Nazis here.
Yeah.
I loved the first series of Lady Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Way back when they first dropped Lady Baltimore stuff. My love for her has since waned. It's become, compared to that first series, it feels like it's like when Claudio Sanchez writes a comic and it's artistic for the sake of being artistic, not artistic for the sake of being a good story. Like, it feels like Mignola writes these killer scripts and Christopher Golden writes these killer scripts, and then they bring in these artists and they're like, okay, now art it up. And sometimes they're pretentious for the sake of pretension. It does a good job, but sometimes it just feels a little much. I'd rather see Mike draw the book. So, still a great story, though. What are you thinking, Mark?
Not familiar with these characters, but I do like the style of the book. I like the pace of the story, and it's just a fun little pulp adventure with bad guys and wizards. So
It's fair.
yeah, that's about all I got.
All right. I'm really excited to tell you the two songs that I picked for the next bookmark. Dan. Hellboy in Love, number 4. Are you ready?
Sure.
Ever fallen in love by the Buzzcocks? And Sympathy for the Devil from the Sons of Anarchy soundtrack as performed by Jane's Addiction.
Okay.
If you're going to make a movie of this book, those would both be on the playlist inspired by the movie.
This is first thing. Do we know if this is the last in the series?
Let me check. I believe it's not.
Yeah, because this was book 4, and it finishes. They did the first one in 2 parts. This one's in 2 parts. I don't know if it'll carry over into another one.
Book 5 of 5 comes out at the end of May.
Oh, so one more issue. That's probably where we find out that she's some kind of demoness or something.
It's called The Key to It All.
I think there's going to be a twist with her because they have this great relationship. You know, they're adventuring together and they're flirting with each other. And I do love the whole shadow puppet thing going on there. As you know, I always love how Mignola taps into these different mythos and stuff that you probably never heard of, and I think he does a great job with that. This is another one, again, good art, and it's nice to see Hellboy outside of the BRPD actually having a life in a sense. So I really do like this series. It's fun, it's light, and that's why I think the fact that we did 2 2-parters and then we get a 1-parter, I think there's going to be a twist, and it's going to be her being a bad person after all, because Hellboy is a lot like Peter Parker. He doesn't get to be happy.
It's true.
Yeah.
I almost chose So Happy Together, but I decided not to because we all know that's not how that works. Mark, are you reading the book as we talk about it?
Yeah.
I love it.
Maybe.
Triple B's like, I think Mark is reading the book as you talk about it. Speed reader.
No, I was actually just I was actually looking back at the art because I did enjoy the art in this one as well, especially when they were turned into puppets. Again, I've seen all the mainstream Hellboy stuff. Not familiar with this story, but I do like this coupling that they have here. And I would probably go back and read the first 3.
They're fun.
Just to see like what happened in previously. So
for me, the first 2 books were too goblin-y, but the second 2 books have been perfect. Like the way Jay feels about fish people, I feel about goblins.
Mm.
Right? I'm just good. But the second 2 books have been absolutely flawless. Just super happy with the way this series is going. Definitely going to pick up trade and probably going to email Mike Mignola about like, hey, can we do like a leather bound hardcover for people who are idiots and who want to spend money on stuff? Like, what do you think? Maybe Kickstart it or something. I don't know, but I want one. This has been some of my favorite Hellboy universe stuff. Outside of like Castle Full of Blackbirds that have come out in a long time.
By the way, I'm surprised your Spotify list doesn't have Barry White at the end of this one.
That's a bell you can't unring there, Dan. Once you listen to Barry White, you can only go one place.
Where they went?
Yeah, or to a Weight Watchers meeting. Does anybody else remember those ads? No, just me?
Nope.
Speaking of ads, I got to tell you guys, we're working on the new set of ads for the experience. And yesterday on the Comic Collectibles show, they kept talking about Ricardo Montalban. We may have a membership services commercial coming based on Ricardo Montalban's Cadillac commercials.
The fine Corinthian leather.
Fine Corinthian memberships. All right, let's take a minute here and reset the room.
No. We're comic people. It should be fine Carpathian leather.
Hold on, I have to text JD. You think I'm kidding?
Nope.
Dan, while I'm texting JD that we need to include the word Carpathian in this commercial, tell people what's going to happen on the Dan Wickline show the rest of the week.
Tomorrow, I'm going to continue my rewatch of the MCU, and went to a movie this time. We're going to do Captain America: The First Avenger, which it's funny, we were talking about a Rocketeer earlier. To the best of my knowledge, those are the only two movies I know of, and were both directed by Joe Johnson, who did, like I said, did both movies and created the Millennium Falcon for Star Wars. So we'll be talking about Captain America tomorrow.
Thursday will, of course, be
Mandalorian and Bad Batch. It'll be the finale of the Bad Batch, by the way. They're doing the 2-part finale. So
cool. I know you don't always get a chance to read the emails, but I found some really great Star Wars pictures to promote your Mandalorian shows.
Yeah.
And this week it was Lego Baby Yoda. So
did you get to see the picture I did for the news roundup today?
I did not. Oh, I did. Yes. The cowboy.
Yeah. But making the one cow that's looking at the camera, I went, he's going to talk.
Yeah. I loved the one you did yesterday for my show with the pancakes on a turntable. It's pretty great. Mark, you always have several podcasts and things that you're a part of. Tell people about those.
He'll talk while I drink.
I think he might be frozen.
Sports card. Okay.
Is he still on DSL or something?
I don't know. It's been worse since his Felix the Cat clock broke.
He's like on dial-up, right?
Yeah.
Ding, ding, ding.
We started the show yesterday.
Running off there.
I don't know what's happening. Hopefully Mark will be back with us shortly.
His eyebrows moved.
Yes, his eyebrows moved.
I think I'm here. I don't know.
All right, now you're back. So start over with your spiel.
Okay. I've been up like 30 hours minus 30 minutes, so I'm just here, man. I'm just here.
You're good, man.
Let's just keep
but
going.
tell everybody about the Adventure Begins show and some of the other stuff you're doing.
Oh yeah, Adventure Begins, sports card and sports podcast. I always try to fit this 2022 Upper Deck Flair Ultra Avengers set that's been out. This is the best comic card set that's come out in, I don't know, 9 years or something. But no one ever wants to talk about that. They want sports. I'm about to have a 200th episode of Feathers and Foes, which is a podcast dedicated to DC Comics Birds of Prey. And Nerd News Now is like almost episode 250, I think. But all we do is ramble and talk about food and wrestling. So that's what I like to talk about.
In my first episode of Nerd News Now, they go, Kyle, can you come on the show? I'm like, sure. What are you talking about? They're like, The Mandalorian. I haven't watched an episode. Well, you need to watch it because that's all we're going to talk about. And you need to be on, you have to be on the show because if we don't, we can't record the show. Okay. When's the show? Monday night. It's Friday. I watched all of The Mandalorian in 2 days so I could be on this stupid show. And now they won't let me leave.
You mean kind of like how I got pulled into this show?
Yes. Who you think I stole the idea from, Dan? So next Monday on the Hot Takes program, we'll be back to regular old Hot Takes where we're going to be talking about variant covers and how some companies are killing the industry with them. Some companies are doing them right, and it's all about the art. All right. So let's jump back in to our books.
Oh, yeah.
Dahlia in the Dark, number 4 from Mad Cave.
Did we read number 3 of this book?
We did.
Was I here?
You may not have been.
Because I don't remember it.
It's also been like 2.5 months. This book hit a delay.
I was lost because I mean, it still is a great looking book, and I want to go back and see if I can find number 3. But this is Mad Cave are the ones that you get, not me. So it means that if I didn't read it then, I don't have it. So love the cover though. I mean that's gonna. It looks so calm and relaxed, a little pink tone to it, but damn. That's a lot of blood.
Dan, I think I can send you the entire trade paperback right now.
Cool.
So Dahlia in the Dark, for those of you who don't remember, it's a mob story. It's 2 feuding families. It's Romeo and Juliet, except that there aren't 2 people involved. It's one, and she's the queen, the princess of the fairy realm. She's been kidnapped, and these mobsters are trying to get her back to. This was where I couldn't remember which side that they were trying to get her back to. It turns out they're trying to get her back to the fairies. So she doesn't want to go, and the main character in the book is trying to help her not go. So that's where this book picks up. There's an awful lot of shooting, as is always. This is if Quentin Tarantino wanted to do a fairy story, this is how he would do a fairy story, I think. Mark, you're jumping in on issue 4. What did you think?
Did not know art, but it was a Harrower 3 or whatever that book was. That Harrower's number 2 that we did last time.
Oh yeah, we did Harrowers last time you were on.
Yeah. I don't know why, but that made me think of this book. That book.
Okay.
This book made me think of that book. Maybe it's like the purple tone of the cover. I don't know. But inside, I had no clue what was going on. I said no clue.
That's fair. All right. A new number 1 that I've been very excited for a very long time. Don't Spit in the Wind. Number 1.
Through this entire book, all I could think about was Trencher, the old Keith Giffen Image series. Because I don't even know who the creative team is on this. I didn't get a chance to look. But it has the feel of that Keith Giffen. Was it Keith Giffen did that book, right?
Yes.
That Keith Giffen did on Trencher. Yeah, it's an interesting book. It's basically nuclear garbage men. I'm kind of curious where the hell this is going to go. Also, Mad Cave seems to be big on pink this month. You got pink on the cover of this one too. Is it? I mean, they should have saved it for October, for Breast Cancer Awareness month. They could have done all pink covers and stuff. It would have been great, but I don't know. This has got some potential. I'm just not quite sure where it's going yet. The art's cool. The feel is totally Trencher. And I think I'm in for it. I'm looking forward to see what number 2 is.
So Trencher was Keith Giffen wrote and drew, and this one is actually written and drawn by Stefano Cardacelli. So both books are written and drawn by the writer, or written and drawn by the same person.
Okay.
Mark, what'd you think?
I like this one. It has the fewest words of the week. So I was able to read it quickly. But look, I like post-punk apocalypse stuff. So I'm thinking like my soundtrack for this one to steal Kyle's thunder would be anything from the Turbo Kid soundtrack. That brilliant, overlooked Canadian cult classic from 7 years ago. I would love to see this set to synth pop. Anything synth pop, really. So
See, I went a very different direction, but I like that idea.
Well, if you haven't seen Turbo Kid, check that out. Amazing. Someone published some Turbo Kid comics. It was called like Apple's Story or something like that. It was like Apple was a character in the movie. I'm not sure what company. I'll have to look up that comic later. But there's definitely some Turbo Kid comics out there too. But the movie was fantastic. It was supposed to get a sequel and never did. I'm interested in this. I'm interested in this. So let's see where
Behemoth
it goes.
is currently publishing Turbo Kid. The last book came out. There was a series in 2021, Apple's Lost Adventure, and then they're doing Turbo Kid Skeleton Unleashed, which just wrapped up at the end of last year. So, soundtrack for me for this was, it's obviously REM's It's the End of the World as We Know It. But also I put The Road Goes On Forever by Robert Earl Keen.
Yeah, I'd go different than both you guys. I was thinking Money Money Bosstones. The impression that I get and stuff like that.
That's fair. The reason I picked that one is that I feel like this is going to wind up being a love story. There's going to be a story about him and his girlfriend who, you know, drives the toxic nuclear waste garbage truck, you know, and that's going to be like them running away together or something. And that it is going to be a reference to that old song that Ed referenced, you know, you don't tug on Superman's cape, don't spin in the wind, don't pull the mask of the Lone Ranger kind of situation.
Isn't it Don't Mess Around with Jim is the next line?
Yeah, I think the song is called Don't Mess Around with Jim. I like it. I like the art. I love Trencher, and it does have that feel. I've been trying to put my finger on what it felt like the whole time. The thing about this book for me is I too like a good post-apocalyptic story. But there's so many of them that they have to really be different, and this one seems to be very different. So it sticks out. Definitely worth picking up. Definitely worth giving a try. This issue doesn't really do much other than kind of world build. It's a very quick read. But it's solid book. All right. Robert Earl Keen, hell yeah. See, Triple B knows what's up. Songs for the Dead, Afterlife.
Speaking of D&D style books, this, I think it's a set of books and they're done as one shots is the impression that I get on this one. The chick in the front is a necromancer from a clan of necromancers or a school of necromancers. It's a pretty interesting book, but it's a long book. Much longer than I expected. Sorry, Mark. But it's really good art. It's really interesting stories and characters. And again, if you're a high fantasy type person, this is a good book to pick up. And I'm, look into maybe what else they've put out from Vault in this, because like the Songs of the Dead, Afterlife, they're in it. There's an ad for another book in this set, which seems like that's what happened to these characters before that. Yeah, I like this one quite a bit.
I didn't dig it.
Too long?
No. It felt... it felt like it should be manga. I don't know that I've ever read a Songs of the Dead book from them before. So it may be just I'm missing some story I wish I had that would have pulled me into it more. Which it was a good story. Don't get me wrong, but like I felt like I was missing huge chunks And so for me, it felt, okay, turn this into a manga or a light novel or something like that. It's a different method for the consumption. The art on the inside is very pretty. It reminds me of my friend Kaylin Smith, who does Plume, or For Goodness Sake. She did Hope from Source Point Press. Not Fables. I can't think of it. Lark's Killer was a book that she did, but it reminded me of those stories, and the cutesy art didn't really do it for me. Even when it wasn't that cutesy, right? Even when it was Deadites, it was a little too cartoony for the story they were telling. But I think the story was well written. I just would have rather read it as a light novel or something. What do you think, Mark?
More words combined than all the other books combined this week, so that's a no for me. And also, the one character that looked like me so mad about the ending of Game of Thrones just set me off. Couldn't do it.
Like I said, I would definitely give this one a shot if you're into this kind of necromancery horror. And again, Deadites, but
Are anybody actually specifically saying, if you're into these necromancy things, that seems a little odd. High fantasy, D&D concepts, but if you're a fan of necromancy, or maybe necrophilia, this is the book for you. This seems a little bit of an odd plug.
Necromancery horror, which it is. It's a part of the horror genre, and it's not a part of the horror genre I'm that into, but I know plenty of people who are.
Yeah, but this is so not horror.
Right. So,
what songs did you pick for this?
I didn't yet. I have a feeling it's going to be like Evanescence or something, and I'm going to hate myself for it.
Bring Me to Life.
I'm feeling I think Albuquerque by Weird Al, because that's kind of the tediousness it takes to read this book.
Well, then it would actually be Bob, because that's Weird Al's song with the most words.
Anything from the Better Off Dead soundtrack?
Pretty much. So, all right. Well, we're a few minutes early, but that's okay, because I gotta use the little producer's room before the next show. So, thank you guys for tuning in. For Dan and Mark, I've been Kyle. This show, as always, is brought to you with limited commercial interruption, which is to say none.
Wait, Kyle. Quick question. I'm gonna something in chat here.
Hell by the Squirrel Nut Zippers. All right, Ed, I see you. We were, but I'm just going to give it to you for your show tomorrow.
I have one for my show tomorrow.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Didn't really feel like something we could get done.
Okay.
So, all right. That said, for Mark and Dan, I've been Kyle. This
The Afterlife
has been in stores this week, brought to you with limited commercial by Comic Shop Locator. Head over to comicshoplocator.com. Type in the zip code of the area where you are, and it will tell you where there are comic shops nearby to you. Some friends of mine are traveling to Central New Jersey this weekend.
Oh, I feel sorry for them.
Well, they're going there to be professional wrestlers, and they were looking for comic shops to visit. And I told them about Fat Jack's Comic Crypt, which they'll pass, and some of the other shops that I know of that they'll pass. But I told them to go to Comic Shop Locator and type in the zip code of their hotel and find comic shops nearby to them and visit them. So you do that as you travel as well. And as always, we will be back next week. Stay tuned for Minute to Skim It, where they're going to review more books and probably have better insights.
As George Carlin used to say, kiss her where it smells, take her to New Jersey.
Wow. Anyway, Jenna and Alfie will be on after us. with more reviews. Tune in to Nerd News Now over on Woodlands Online. Tune in tomorrow for Dan's show. And I will see everybody on Monday for Hot Takes. So, thank you, everyone, for being here, and we will see you next time. Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is